I'm the Godless Engineer, and I critically analyze apologist claims to give you the best arguments and information so that you can stand up and use your voice. Today, we're going to be taking another look at Frank Turek and the morality argument. So let's see what he's talking about today.
In fact, in my couple of debates with Michael Shermer, he kept saying, how do you know murder's wrong? I said, Michael, we both agree murder's wrong. I can justify why it is, you can't.
I don't think so there, Frank. I don't think that you can actually justify why it's wrong by using God, which is what you're going to try to do.
One of the things that I get stuck with when I'm in a debate, I'm always debating with the objective moral argument. And we'll argue for a while, and I'll tell them, well, when it comes down to it, if God does not exist, then murder isn't really wrong. And then the atheist will say, yeah, like they say that's my worldview, that's what I believe in.
So I really don't think that this is an actual conversation this young man had with any atheist. Well, for one thing, any atheist out there wouldn't say that, well, if God doesn't exist, then nobody can say that murder is wrong. Obviously, we can. We can do this because everybody pretty much lives in a society, especially the people that would be in this conversation. And every society is going to have some kind of shared moral foundation that we all agree to in order to live and cooperate in that society. Another problem with this young man's statement is that even if a God does exist, that does not necessarily mean that morality in any kind of sense is actually grounded in God. And I wouldn't expect any atheist out there to concede that particular point, because it kind of insinuates that with a God, we all do know that murder is wrong, but in fact, in reality, we do not observe that. Many different cultures across many different time spans have had different ideas about what murder actually is. So to say that we all know that murder is wrong is just observably false. One thing that Christians really can't explain with their absolute morality argument is the existence of sociopaths and psychopaths. These are people with mental disorders that can't necessarily feel empathy or even have the same kind of moral foundation that everybody else does in the society in which they exist. If we all know that murder is wrong, why do psychopaths not know that murder is wrong by nature? This is easily explained with naturalism because a moral foundation or a sense of morality is an emergent property of a complex enough central nervous system. In the case of psychopaths and sociopaths, that particular mechanism doesn't exactly form correctly due to chemicals being out of balance in their brains or just how their brains are put together. These are just some of the problems with the Christian argument from morality.
Murder really isn't wrong. How can I deal with something like that?
You're lying. He already knows it's wrong.
Well, no. Okay, so it's a very nuanced situation here. It's not necessarily that the atheists that this young man has conversed with in the past are lying, and it's not necessarily that the young man in this video is lying himself. But I feel like this guy is looking at his past conversations with Christian-colored lenses, and so that causes him to view them very differently from how they actually happened. While it may seem like the atheist is lying in this situation, in actuality, I feel like the young man is either lying himself, misremembering how the conversations went, or is just, I guess, making it up in general, but I mean, that would be covered under lying. Now, I'm going to go with the benefit of the doubt here and say that this guy is not lying. It's not really good to just automatically assume people are lying, just like Frank Turek did right here. Kind of makes you an asshole there, Frank. But anytime I hear about these particular types of conversations or stories coming from Christians, I find that it's more likely that they are either misremembering the situation or that they never had them in the first place.
He is. He knows it's wrong. You can't convince somebody to know something he already knows.
You can't convince somebody to know something that they already know. I mean, yeah, I would say that you can't convince me of a position that I've already convinced of. I mean, it's like continuing to nail the nail into the piece of wood.
Right.
In fact, my friend Jay Budziszewski, who teaches at UT Austin, has written a wonderful book called What We Can't Not Know about this very topic. Says, and he's a professor there, he says, I used to, when students would come to me and say, well, how do we even know murder's wrong? He used to try and convince them murder's wrong, and he finally says, I don't do that anymore. They already know it's wrong. I just say, you don't have any doubt that murder's wrong now, do you? Really? No.
Well, no, I wouldn't say anybody has any doubt that murder is wrong. What they're asking you is a deeper question of philosophically, can you justify why murder is actually wrong? We all have the sense of morality that's shared among us in our society. Most modern Western societies have this concept that murder is wrong, but not all societies share that particular concept. It also hasn't been that murder is wrong all throughout history in various civilizations. As we have modernized, as we have progressed in society, we have come to a shared understanding of what makes a society work. One of those things is to not kill your neighbor. That's why it's a fundamental moral thing that we all understand to be true. But what you're really doing here is sidestepping the conversation, because you're saying, well, I don't need to philosophically ground that murder is wrong in any kind of way because we all already know that murder is wrong. This plays back on his whole idea that God has written the law on our hearts. This comes from the Bible. And no, it's not all written on our hearts. For one thing, this particular argument can't explain sociopaths and psychopaths. If this particular concept is just something that everybody knows and it's written on our hearts somehow, then why don't sociopaths or psychopaths really know that murder is wrong? If you get somebody that tries to come back at you with, well, everybody just knows X thing is wrong, you can always bring up sociopaths or psychopaths that don't necessarily know that that is wrong. Or really anybody else with a mental disorder that would prevent them from knowing that something is wrong.